understanding in even the most rudimentary sense of life or death. Good, right, wrong. I met this 6-year-old child with this blank, pale, emotionless face, the blackest eyes, the devil's eyes. I spent 8 years trying to reach him, and then another 7 trying to keep him locked up because I realized that what was living behind that boy's eyes was purely and simply evil.
And good morning, everybody. Welcome back to Let's Talk Movies. I'm Brad.
And I'm Miguel.
And super special show. This is Purely and Simply Evil, episode 13. And we are joined by 2 very special guests, Frank Riker and Daren Sands of the Slaughtered Lamb Movie Podcast. You know them as 2 of the hosts at the Slaughtered Lamb, as well as the moderators over on 2 of the moderators over on Dave McRae's channel. 2 awesome dudes we have been super excited to have on. So please welcome to the show, Frank Riker and Daren Sands. How are you guys doing, man?
Good to see you.
Good.
You even got us on the right side as well. We're
really
comfortable on this side. Yeah.
That's good. I've accidentally switched us before, and he's like, "You got to put it back. I can't do this. I can't do it."
Doesn't feel right, does it?
It's like trying to write with like your opposite hand. You can't do it.
You get lazy eye, right? You're just like following.
Pretty much, yeah. I think in the beginning of this podcast, we were like on opposite sides, and then when we did this one, we kind of went to this one, and we just kind of got used to it. I think
we were when we switched to you, because we used to use Zoom and we used to pre-record all of our stuff. And when we switched to StreamYard, it switched, so it was like then you got to get used to it. But
yeah.
Thank you guys so much for agreeing to come on. We really appreciate your time. Frank, I know you have kids. I know you guys have busy schedules with your jobs and your personal lives, so we really appreciate you taking the time on this Saturday morning.
Oh, thanks for having us. We're really looking forward to it.
Yeah, no problem. Our pleasure.
Yeah, so we are going to talk an American Werewolf in London today. Been super excited. We actually recorded our commentary for this, which is out now on our channel, about a month and a half ago. So we've been really looking forward to this one. So, let's talk about you guys a little bit. So, we'll get to American Werewolf in a few minutes, but to start off, I wanted to take some time because this is a big space, and there's a whole lot of different channels with whole wide ranges of content. So can you tell us a little bit about how you and Frank met and how you guys initiated this idea with each other?
Go ahead, Daren.
Okay. We worked together for probably about 5 years on Dave's channel now, in the moderating the chat there. And I think it was during the pandemic, I reached out to Frank and said, hey, we've got similar tastes and that. Do you want to do something? And he said, yeah. I mean, he was thinking about doing something himself anyway. So we hopped on a Zoom call one evening, and we just chatted for like 3 hours and recorded it. Cool. And found out we had a hell of a lot of stuff in common. And then sort of decided that we were going to, put together an audio podcast, which we started, I think, around about September, October of 2020. We did around about 6-8 months on there, and then made the jump to YouTube. And it's been good. We've done around about, I think we're up to about 180 episodes or something like that now. So we've had a lot of fun, and when you 2 guys, when you click with somebody, it feels right, and it's felt right since day one. So we've had a lot of fun.
Yeah, you guys are kicking ass. I love watching.
Oh, I appreciate that. I mean, it's we find out when we start doing shows like this that you have actually more in common than just movies. Music comes out, shows, personal life, way you grow up. Yeah. Because without doing something like this, you always think growing up and going to school, you're the only one that likes horror movies, likes action movies, likes the type of comedies. But doing shows like this, and what you and Miguel and Brad are doing is that there's a lot more people out there.
Yeah.
That like the same thing. So it's a nice community. And when we started this, we were shit. We were awful.
So were we.
We were polite. We were just like stuttering, and our mouth was dry, and we forgot to say stuff, and they were like, "That's god awful." I don't think I want to be with Daren. He's fucking up.
Again, who the hell is this guy?
Yeah, he started this. I wanted to be by myself.
Yeah. Well, it's funny you mentioned about the community thing because, like, I had seen, I had never would have dreamed that we would have had a channel or anything like that. But, like, really around the time that Halloween 2018 came out, it was like, holy shit, there's this whole online presence of people that, you know what I mean? Like this whole community between all these different channels. And that's, when I found Dave and We Watched a Movie guys and so many different people. And I was like, this is really cool, So this was our pandemic project. I texted him literally how it went. I texted him and I was like, hey, I have an idea. And he was like, sure, let's do it. No discussion. Let's just do it.
We ain't do anything for 2 years.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Well,
And
we started out
really...
we just started out just talking about movies constantly. Like it started out like during the pandemic, we just we're just call each other like constantly, like around like the end of the evening, and we just talk for like hours on end. And that was all great and stuff. But then one day he called me in particular and he was like, hey man, I have a really great idea. Let's do a podcast. And I was like, bro, you're an idiot. Like, why would we even bother doing it? Like, why would anyone listen to us? So, but luckily I just decided like, why not? We are in a pandemic. So let's just do it. And then as the road goes, with every single bumps and turns, I started out on my iPhone 8 because I had terrible quality. So now look at us. We're just using pretty good equipment now and we're having a good show. So
excellent.
You upgraded to StreamYard.
Yes, sir.
And what's really cool I find about it as well is that, there's so much shit going on in the world with the pandemic and the war that's going on at the moment. And you forget that there are genuinely nice people out there. Yeah. And, that's one of the things that Frank and I are really touched about are the messages that we get and the comments that we get. And it's like, wow, we're just two guys chatting to each other and you're listening and you're saying all these really nice things. It's really humbling at times. And, it's a nice community to be involved in.
Yeah, 100%, man. And it's funny because I was actually traveling with some family the last couple of days, and I was with my parents, and I was telling them about having you guys on your show, and they were like, "What's the name of it?" And I said, "The Slaughtered Lamb," and I explained the American Werewolf and London connection. And my dad was like, "That's fucking awesome." He's like, "That's really cool." So, I really like the best and worst format that you guys have kind of adopted because it's different from where you guys started, as you said a few minutes ago. Like, it's been cool to see that evolve. Where did that idea come from?
Darren thought of that. Darren thought of that. It's just like it's like we're getting boring. We're trying to change from what everyone else is doing. We did the Cool Cruel Summers, which basically killed Darren. He was like Rob Bottin on The Thing. It's just like I can't do this all by myself and pass it out. Editing 10 movies, through a whole decade it's killing me. Yeah. And so he just came up with it. Let's do the best and worst of, pick a category, and let's say, okay, John Carpenter movies. Pick a movie during that time, and plus when you do best and worst of, each of us give our own opinion. He may not agree with me, and I may not agree with him. But on some things, we do find, we do agree what is the best and what is the worst sometimes, more so than we like to admit. But it's and plus we probably get a little bit of inspiration from other channels like yourself and see where you're going with it and just maybe twist upon it. But yeah, it seems to be going well for us so far.
Yeah, it is. And it's kind of funny. It's almost funny when you don't agree too. Not you all specifically, but like when you don't agree with someone else. Like we've done that a few times because, we started off with the Let's Talk Movies show. And then the kind of the point of this Purely and Simple Evil show was to be able to introduce him to horror because he wasn't really a horror guy. So, it's cool. It's just cool the different dynamics that people have. Like, you were both huge horror fans. I was a huge horror fan. He was not, So it's like, it's really cool to see, like, different channels and how they, their interactions and how kind of their different backgrounds. And it's cool, man. I like talking to people. So that's what's so cool about this community.
And Miguel, do you find yourself warming to horror now that you've been watching more of the films?
Yeah, for sure. Well, just to start out, like I was like ridiculously like fearful of like horror movies. Like I've told Brad in the audience a number of times that like I used to go to like video rental stores, like with like VHSs, like I'm still at that little generation. And there would be like a movie section at the very end that had like, like animes and like Godzilla movies, because I'm a big Godzilla fan, as you can see. But to get through there, you had to get through the horror section. It was like 2 aisles, and I would literally like shield my face because I was so scared of the covers. Like Stephen King's It, fucking Pennywise, frightened me to my core as a kid. So I did not even bother watching. So it wasn't until like, middle school or high school where I just started like, what, I'll start watching it. And I started realizing like how interesting the movies are in and of itself. Like even with like horror movies, there's still like a lot of great stories in there. Obviously there's some campy stuff here and there, but horror movies really do have really intriguing storylines in that genre. So I started getting a little bit more interested in. I didn't particularly watch it all the time until I met Brad, and I kept seeing him wearing Halloween get out, and I was like, bro, is your thing Halloween? Like, what is it about this man in this white mask? So
Isn't everybody's?
I know.
Everybody isn't into Halloween.
Yeah,
where have you been?
Yeah, Frank, I was the guy that we talked about earlier that like, what is Halloween, or who is Michael Myers? I really didn't know who it was. I knew he was some like scary guy that I just didn't want nothing to do with. But I started growing into it more and more, and it was Brad was able to get me into it. And when we decided to watch Rob Zombie's first, he would continue to tell me, be like, Rob Zombie's first movie was great. Second one, pretty mid, but the rest you just gotta watch and absorb everything. And that's what I was doing. So when we started with Halloween, it was definitely like a good like introduction to like actually delving into Halloween. So and into the horror genre. So there's now like a bunch of movies, horror movies in general, that I liked a lot. A lot of more modern ones too, like Malignant and all the other ones that I've heard about. I actually find those really interesting. So, yeah,
he slapped him right in the face, didn't he, with the Halloween series? Rob Zombie.
Really did.
Didn't give you the first one.
Did.
Here's Rob Zombie. Watch this first. That was just.
Well, that's because I think it's because that was his first Halloween movie too. He was like, "You got to watch what I watched first, man." So that's how it goes.
It actually was. I was a horror fan prior to that, but I wasn't. I actually became a Halloween fan later, and I had seen Rob Zombie's first before I ever saw the original. Which is kind of, I was into Elm Street way more than when I was younger. I was way more into Elm Street, but so you guys are both obviously horror nuts, but like what other genres or types of films are you guys into? Like what are some other movies that have really impacted you guys besides movies like American Werewolf? Can you kind of tell us a little bit about that?
Oh, I mean, I love a lot of action movies. Darren and I have talked about our love for movies like RoboCop, the original, Total Recall with Arnold, and basically we like that the silly action. Like some guy with a big gun blowing up a safe to a bank. There'd be like a skeleton inside counting the money, stuff like that, like weird stuff. Because it's funny when you could take a movie and not take it seriously, and then make fun of it and still enjoy it. I think you found a gem on your hand.
Absolutely.
And that was the whole kind of point of the podcast and the shows that we do, is that we don't take films too seriously. I mean, I work in the film industry, so I absolutely love every single genre of movie making. But Frank and I tend to gravitate towards things that we can have a lot of fun with. And it's interesting because we were chatting about a movie the other day and we were just having fun with it, and some guy in the chat's getting really serious and going, you guys make me sick when you don't take this seriously. And it's like, chell out, it's a film. It's actually
a zombie movie.
Yeah, exactly. We
it's
love
not real
this
life.
Film. We just like to have fun with it,
Have you seen that Sadness movie?
Oh yeah.
Is that what you were watching?
Yeah.
Dude, how was that? Because I haven't seen it yet.
That is something to throw Miguel head first into. See how he gets on with that.
Shoot, that makes me want to watch it. I'm a big zombie guy. I love zombie movies. So
it's a gut punch, Miguel. It's not a slap in the face like Rob Zombie. It's a gut punch.
It's
really
called
Sadness.
The Sadness.
The Sadness. It's a Shudder movie. Basically, it's kind of, have you ever saw 28 Days Later?
I love
Yeah.
It's basically a kind of virus outbreak that kind of reduces its victims to sort of their kind of primal instincts, and it's. I guess you could say it's zombies that can talk, run, shoot, stab, do anything.
Make love.
Yeah, yeah, as well. Yeah. It's really fucked up. And you know, go tread carefully when you start watching it. That's all I would say.
Oh man, head first, Brad.
Need to
Okay.
check that out.
Okay.
You're ready for it. Butter up. You're ready.
Let's do it then.
So
You feel bad laughing at little parts of it. You're like, oh no, that's bad.
Yeah, they went there. Oh God, they went there.
I'll tell you, 28 Days Later is one of those movies that it's one of the few movies that legitimately still to this day kind of freaks me out. Like something about the atmosphere of that movie and just the way it's presented. It's eerie. I mean, it's a really eerie movie. I love the scene when they're trying to fix the flat tire in the tunnel and all the rats start running the opposite direction. It's a really cool movie, man. I'm excited to get to that one. So
it's great.
By the way, if you guys are watching, if you've got questions for Frank and Darren, please throw them in the chat and we'll get to them at some point. Let's talk American Werewolf in London. Released on August 21st, 1981, written and directed by John Landis, who also did Trading Places with Dan Aykroyd, Jamie Lee Curtis, Eddie Murphy, did The Blues Brothers, Coming to America, which is one of my favorite Eddie Murphy movies of all time. And interestingly enough, the Thriller music video, which I believe he co-wrote that with Michael Jackson, if I'm not mistaken.
Directed it, yeah.
And even the makeup artist, I forget his name.
Rick Baker.
Rick Baker.
Yeah.
Yep. I know Michael Jackson kind of wanted that to be a love letter to, you know, the zombie genre and an American Werewolf, because Thriller came out in what, 84?
3, 4, I think.
Yeah, it was early 80s.
He'd seen Michael Jackson had seen American Werewolf in London and got in touch with John Landis and Rick Baker and said, "Look, I want to do this music video. Will you help me out?" And they were on board. He obviously threw the money at them, and they came on board. We got the two. We got the best director in Hollywood at the time and the best makeup artist, Oscar-winning makeup artist. They actually created a category for special effects at the Academy, just so that they could gift him an Oscar for American Werewolf in London. Yeah. He got those two on board and made Thriller on the strength of American Werewolf in London. So
Werecat.
Yeah, a werecat. It doesn't quite look like a wolf, does it?
It's,
No.
Yeah, it's kind of strange looking.
Yeah.
It's more.
He
It's
comes
like
running at me. I'm throwing some nip at him. Like,
you get like the spritz of water.
yeah,
Bad.
lemon and water.
Got to get rid of them. So had a budget of $6 million, but made over $62 million at the box office, which is a pretty good haul.
Yeah,
especially for 81. Here's the ultimate question. I'm gonna slap you both in the face. Is American Werewolf in London the greatest werewolf movie of all time?
Yes.
Oh, wow.
I would agree. You know, it's funny. I was watching, which one was it? I think it was the newest Wolfman film that came out. That was probably 2007 or something.
Benicio del Toro.
Yeah. And I was watching the transformation scene, and it honestly, it doesn't hold a candle. It literally doesn't even hold a candle.
And it's the same guy that did the work as well.
Really?
Yeah. But they used a lot of CG, I think, Frank, didn't they?
Yeah.
I think it was the CG that probably made it semi threw you out of the movie, so to speak, as compared to the transformation of like an American Werewolf in London. Like you can actually feel and see the pain that he's going through in that transformation, and as it should, I suppose, because your first transformation is not supposed to be the most comfortable, or for that matter.
I don't know, with other transformations, like even in The Howling, which I think The Howling's transformation is really strange too. Like the bubbling of it almost looks like his skin is boiling underneath of, it's weird, but
like
it's like
gremlin.
they want to,
like a gremlin.
exactly. It's like they want to rush to the werewolf part. They don't want to. You can't sit and kind of revel in the agony of what's happening to the person, which is what I think made the scene with David so great. Is he looks like he is in complete agony during that scene,
and he said the John Landis said to Rick Baker, I want to do this in broad daylight, I don't want you to kind of hide him in the dark and make things easy for yourself. I want you to do this in broad daylight, which was a huge challenge for them. But yeah, they built, I think it was Pinewood or Shepperton or one of the London studios. They built a set there and buried David Norton half underneath the floorboards, particularly for that scene when he's on his back on the floor. And you can see him start, he's sort of on all fours, but upwards, if you like. And they left him in there for like a week, didn't they, Frank? I think it was shooting,
including lunch. We'll be back for lunch.
They just leave him for lunch under the floorboard. They just be left on his own.
That is brutal.
Yeah.
Could you imagine just having to and you not imagine he's not in a comfortable position. Like it's not, you know what I mean? Just having to sit there for hours on end while they're gone. That would be awful.
We'll bring it back a soda and a sandwich.
Yeah.
You want Coke or Pepsi? What do you want?
Yeah.
Simon Mills actually says the Wolfman made Rick Baker quit Hollywood because he wanted to do a transformation, but they went with CGI.
Yeah.
Wow, I didn't know that.
True. Yeah, he just had enough then.
Plus, it's probably a little cheaper too.
That's the thing.
I can see that, yeah.
That's why there's so much CGI in films now, because if you have to do multiple takes on practical effects, the cleanup and reset of the scene it takes forever. Whereas with CG, you just do the one take and then worry about it in post production.
Right.
Poor Rick Baker. Yeah, he really got burnt by that film.
Yeah. Well, and I think part of they're so. And this isn't really a negative thing because I completely understand, but I think studios are so they want to expedite the process. They want to they want everything to be as quick and seamless as it possibly can be when they're filming. So like you said, the teardown and the resetting up and having to keep doing those prosthetic effects. Plus, I mean, I'm sure that costs a lot of money,
and
the effects themselves. So
it didn't say that thing, like time is money. And, if a studio is delayed, that's even more money that they're wasting right there. So, I mean, whatever there is to expedite the process, they're willing to do it. And fortunately and unfortunately, CGI was, a big part of that factor of like, hey, we can expedite this movie. We can get it out, ahead of schedule. So let's just do it.
Yeah.
HT says, did you see the sequel, American Werewolf in Paris? I have actually not. I have not seen the sequel, but I don't hear good things.
Blasphemous, yeah.
Oh my God,
it's terrible.
Really,
it reeks like the country.
Yeah. For a long time,
Daren, come on.
For a long time, they like a lot of garlic. I'm not a big garlic fan.
Oh,
French like a lot of garlic.
My Italian heart you just slapped my Italian heart.
For a long time, they were actually going to do a sequel to An American Wolf in London, a proper sequel with some of the original characters, but it just never got off the ground. And I think somebody bought the rights and they made a American Werewolf in Paris, which is kind of unlinked, really. I think is there some link to it, Frank? I can never remember.
The only link is that you see the dead victims.
Right.
That's but basically the
character-wise, they're not linked to the original characters, are they? I've only seen it once, and it was
not
terrible.
Not at all. I mean, the wolf in this movie kind of looks like a rabid poodle.
That could be scary too.
How scary, yeah.
The face is all smushed in. It's definitely CGI. They could walk on 2, and then when they want to chase you, then they go to 4.
Yeah.
It's weird.
That's interesting. That's interesting. Random Reviews may have some fighting words for you and Daren. He says the sequel is way better than the original.
Oh my God!
Well,
you're entitled. You're entitled.
Well, that's a wrap. We'll see you later.
Joking. I hope you're joking. You just killed the Slaughterland Movie Podcast.
That's a wrap on the whole thing. Evil Alex, what's going on, man? He says, speaking of practical effects and CGI, I still want to see the practical effects cut of the Thing prequel from 2009. That film wasn't bad at all. Only the CGI takes it down for me. They masked over. Yeah, I agree. That film did have a lot of CGI to it.
Yeah, I know. I don't mind that. I mean, I love the original version of the Thing, but the sequel or remake or prequel or whatever you want to call it, I didn't mind it. I thought there were some interesting shots in there. Obviously, there was a lot of practical work, which they kind of, you know, they just sort of finished off with CG, which was just bizarre. It kind of just doesn't sit right properly. So I agree with Evil Alex. I'd like to see if there's a version that kind of omits all that CG. But I still think the movie was quite good.
Yeah, wasn't there a scene in that prequel where they come upon the actual spaceship underground, right?
I believe so. Yeah.
I mean, in regards to practical effects, I'm sure that's a big budget if they try to go for that. But I'm sure that would have been CGI. But nevertheless, I think the Thing prequel did a really good job at being what it is, a prequel. Because the way they laid a lot of things out for what's to come if you ever want to watch the actual thing.
I agree.
Well, you know what's unbelievable is a woman being left with all those men in Antarctica. That's unbelievable.
That's a challenge in itself. Yeah,
I'm sure the computer had its buttons pressed more than once on the original thing. You can't kill the chess computer. It's the only girl we have here.
You know, even kind of thinking about it, like I think back to like some of those earlier episodes of The Walking Dead where they had mixed like CGI effects and practical effects, and it's a really weird. It's a weird combination. Like I don't.
It's not transitioned right?
No.
You can tell.
Yeah. Like even some of the blood splatter, like where they're shooting zombies. Like it's almost like well, that one was practical. Nope, that one looked terrible. That one was. It's really spotty. Like and it's obvious. Like it almost kind of like ripped you out of that scene.
And that's back to what I was saying before because what's his name? Who does who's one of the main guys on The Walking Dead? Oh.
Andrew Lincoln?
No, the special effects guy.
Greg Nicotero.
Greg Nicotero. Yeah. Greg Nicotero. You know, obviously he's a big practical guy, but, you know, watching interviews with him, he says exactly the same, that he's had to embrace CG for that reason, because, you know, The Walking Dead, the turnaround times that they have on that show, there's not enough time to mop things up and reshoot, so they just add it in later.
Right.
Yeah.
Which I think they've gotten a lot better about that too. Which I mean, they have more money now too than they did in that first season. But yeah, we're big Walking Dead fans. I don't know if you guys have watched.
Do you know what I got? I used to love it, and I got as far as the series, whereas they had about 25 opportunities to kill Negan. It was the series after. It was the series after he'd killed Steve Ewan.
Glenn.
Yeah, and I was just like, come on now. Come on.
Yeah, Negan was without a doubt protected by the script itself. Nothing less, nothing more.
He's a fan favorite, right?
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, absolutely. So
he's not the governor, you know, because the governor's just like, get rid of him.
He was a little bit, he was a
Negan had personality.
Yeah.
Am I right in thinking that he's now he's gone like in the wrestling world, you know, when they turn face? He's like a hero in the show now or something?
He's actually kind of redeemed himself a lot.
After what he did?
Yeah, well, and a lot of it comes from, because of course, like Maggie was pregnant when he killed Glenn. So like he's saved their child a whole bunch, and like he's kind of had a big 180. So but yeah, he's
going to be a daddy.
Are you still watching it, Frank?
Yeah, Negan's going to be a daddy.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
I did not. I missed that.
Completely forgot. Well, you're not caught up, are you?
Yeah, I'm not.
Oh, sorry about that.
Spoilers, everyone.
Spoiler alert.
That's perfectly fine. I'm not one to get upset with spoilers, but I will say Negan's storyline has definitely been one that I've been very interested in, mainly from his backstory episode when you got to see why he became what he is, and you could definitely tell the way he was so charismatic and just his long monologues and continually always trying to be oh, I'm on top of the world, there's nothing that can destroy me. His backstory really sets the stage for why he acts the way he does. So it's it really delves into the mind of Negan and how he became such a psychotic man. So you almost feel for the guy whenever he does all this stuff. And then the conversation with Maggie and Negan, it really puts it in perspective of well, who was the real villain or who was the real bad guy in that Negan and Rick's group. So it really gave you a real pull between other sides, well, who's right and who's wrong, so kind of thing.
Yeah, we've got super off the rails here.
No.
We've completely we've done a 180. Evil Alex says actually there was supposed to be a woman in the Carpenter film, but she got pregnant before shooting and didn't want to be on a base in Antarctica for months, pregnant with a bunch of men shooting a horror film. And I don't blame her. I don't blame her.
Wow, I never knew that.
Huh.
That's interesting. I never knew that.
That is pretty interesting. So for you guys, what made American Werewolf in London stand out for you the first time you had seen it? Like, what was your first experience with that movie?
For me, when I saw it as a kid, I didn't realize that. I thought the transformation scene was absolutely real. I thought this stuff was absolutely real. And I remember, like, I was born the year it came out, so when I saw it, as like 3 or 4 years old, I thought he was actually changing into a wolf, and I actually wanted to be a werewolf. I think all kids wanted to be either werewolves or vampires at some point in their life. And then my dad would fast forward past the theater scene because he didn't want me to see what was on the screen playing in the background. But I didn't care about that. I just wanted to see this transformation. I just wanted to see more of the wolf. And I absolutely loved it. And it is the transformation scene that makes this movie the best werewolf movie of all time. And when David breaks the fourth wall and he looks at you and he reaches out even for you to help him, it just pulls you in closer. And the characters are so lovable. You know everyone. But it's so funny because when Daren, close your ears because I'm going to say something about British people for a moment.
Oh, crap.
They're so proper. They're so proper and they're so straight to the point and they don't mess around. And having David come in, who's this American, who's boisterous and doesn't care. He's very handsy, with his girlfriend. It is true that he's a stranger in a strange land, even though there's more common ground than anything.
Right. Well, I even love like when they walk into the slaughtered lamb for the first time, and there's such a contrast between the two of them and everybody else in the room. You got to get that cold stare from everybody,
That bothers Daren. That bothers Daren a little bit.
Well, for me, the one thing for me that I saw Michael Jackson's Thriller, the making of Michael Jackson's Thriller, and they talked about American Werewolf in London, and that's what got me to see the movie. So I think I saw it in about '84 first. I then watched it and realized that where it's supposedly set at the start of the film is near the part of the country where I'm from. And so that I kind of got, gravitated towards that as well. So it's set in the Yorkshire Moors, and I'm a Yorkshireman. I'm from Yorkshire. So I was really attracted to that. And then also I then moved to London and started living and working in London. And so my office was just outside of Piccadilly Circus. And so every day I would walk through Piccadilly Circus to get to my office.
That's
and
awesome.
then I'd stand there and look around and think, wow, this is where it all took place, and this is where they shut this place down for 2 nights to do all that filming of the car crashes and throwing the severed head around, and so I was really drawn to it on a lot of personal levels. But the pub itself, there are a lot of pubs like that in the north of England that you would walk in and be completely out of place because it's a local pub, and they don't usually have people from out of town, particularly Americans.
Right.
Or tea.
Yeah.
Did they ask? Was it tea or coffee that they asked for when they walked in?
Soup first.
Soup, yeah, because they were hungry. Yeah.
No, we don't have any of that. No,
but I can make some if you like.
Back to the retro station says, who's the best actor, the balloon kid or the hospital ward no kid? I like the balloon kid.
Well, I would think the balloon kid has more lines.
Yeah, I think the balloon kid's pretty funny. Like for me, I think American Werewolf, I remember seeing bits and pieces of it when I was a kid, but I can't. It's one of those movies where I can't remember for the life of me, like when or where the first time I really sat down and watched it was. So like when we recorded our commentary a few weeks ago, that was the first time I think as an adult I had seriously sat down and I was like, holy crap, this amazing. Like the thing from the transformation scene to it's also like I really find the blend of horror and comedy fascinating because that's so odd. Like one minute you're laughing your ass off because of the horny nurses or the banter and the difference between
the peeping nurses.
Very true. Yeah,
it's the horniest bunch of nurses I've ever seen. Man, it's just like how is what? But it's a really interesting like back and forth between the horror and the comedy aspects of it,
It's difficult to do that, and they got the blend, to be able to jump from really, really funny to goddamn scary. Like the scene in you're laughing at them all in the cinema, and they're all talking about the wounds and the fact that he must kill himself, and then literally 5 minutes later, there's that scene where he changes in the cinema. And the cop comes in and shines his light on the wolf and the body, and it's just like, damn, that's a horrible image.
Yeah.
It's there's some really scary stuff in there.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people struggle like how serious to take it. What's your all's take on like how serious you should take this one?
Well, it's not a belly buster of a movie, though, right? It's not like scary movie or anything like that. But you know what it is? I like to think that this movie's comedy is based on sarcasm.
Absolutely.
Oh yes, absolutely. I can agree with that wholeheartedly. The amount of like, I love this movie so much just because of like how sarcastic it can be at certain times, and just to like knock off the idea like, oh, I can't be a werewolf, or it's just if I'm not correct, they like kind of played into the fact that he's just acting like an American or something like that. Isn't the fact that he's actually a werewolf?
Well, they thought he was crazy.
They thought he was just a crazy American just in London. But yeah. And like they didn't know until like the climax when it was like, oh shit, there's actually a rabid werewolf around these parks. So
well, even once he gets to the sexual harassment hospital, it's like they just kind of write him off as it was some lunatic, or I think they said something about it was just a crazy person.
He just lost his friend. He's out of his mind. It's expected of him. Right. And we're gonna let you go sleep with one of our nurses to feel better.
There you go. Yeah.
It's like a survival's guilt kind of thing. You know what I mean? Yeah.
It's part of your rehab.
It's interesting because there's actually a radio play which has a lot of the original actors in it. It's like an audio cassette. Yeah, that you can listen to. It's pretty much the same story, but expands on who the wolf is at the start of the movie. And apparently it's the brother of Brian Glover. So Brian Glover's the guy who's in Alien 3, who's sat in the pub and who's telling the jokes about, and jokes out the Mexicans. With the Alamo joke and all that sort of stuff. Yeah. It's apparently his brother that's the actual werewolf. And that's why he's stood outside the church telling everybody to shut up. That's enough. When the doctor comes to visit to investigate.
That's interesting.
So... it's an interesting listen, so you should maybe check that out because it has pretty much all the cast in there. It's just an audio listen of the film, basically.
Yeah, I'd like to check that out. And it's funny because thinking back to even like John Landis does that. You had mentioned Miguel, like the sarcasm thing. Like he even does that. There's little tidbits of that in Coming to America and the Blues Brothers. Like you kind of get that sarcastic. Like I think he's really good at bringing that out. You know what I mean?
You dumb fuck.
I love the "Good morning, my neighbors" scene in Coming to America. Oh,
it's a very British sense of humor throughout the movie.
Which he's not British, is he?
John Landis?
Yeah.
No.
I didn't think so.
That's just great acting on his part.
I think he had shelved this movie. It was like over a decade, I think. I think from what I understand, like the financiers were having trouble like placing it in like one genre, and they didn't want to touch it, which he did.
Yeah,
Schlock, which is the other.
Yeah.
Schlock,
yeah.
I've never seen Schlock, but I watched a couple of clips of it yesterday. It looks interesting.
It's he wrote it in the late 60s. He was a runner on Kelly's the movie Kelly's Heroes with Clint Eastwood and Donald Sutherland, and he wrote it while he was on set. And what he'd done was he'd seen a wedding. I think it was, if I remember right now, he'd witnessed like a gypsy wedding, and they'd buried the corpse standing up, but upside down, head first. and he.
It's a wedding, Darren.
A wedding?
Sorry, a funeral. Sorry, a funeral. God damn
I'm
it!
glad the two of us were like kind of.
Here comes the father of the bride. We're gonna prop him up in the corner.
Yeah.
Slight correction there. A funeral. He'd witnessed a funeral, whereas they buried the corpse head first down, sort of vertically, to make sure that it couldn't get out, if you like. And he said he sat there wondering what would it be like if that corpse could get out and roam around, and that's where the idea of Jack coming back from the grave came from. So that's where the inspiration came from. But you're right, he had it kind of a script for a good 10, 12 years before he actually got them to make it.
It's kind of interesting that they thought, financiers were ready for schlock, but not. They thought schlock was that was the one.
Yeah.
Kentucky Fried Movie.
Kentucky Fried Movie as well. Wow.
Meanwhile, Simon Mills says, "You ever talk to a corpse? It's boring." As we're talking about corpses and weddings and things like that.
Until they talk to you, and then it's actually exciting. Yeah.
Well, I actually remember seeing too that the studio actually wanted him to cast Dan Aykroyd and John Belushi as David and Jack, which that would have been kind of interesting too.
Yeah.
Could have been a whole different movie if that could have, you know what I mean? But I mean, I honestly, the guys, what were their names?
David Norton and Griffin Dunn.
Yes, I knew he was actually named David. But I thought they did a really good job, though. Even like everything from the opening of this movie, like when they're on the back of the truck with the sheep, and you get like the famous, which you guys have used the classic line,
stick to the roads.
Stick to the roads, and the best of luck.
Best of luck.
So I like their banter at the beginning, and just kind of the first act of this, like for me, I feel like it really sets up like the really dreary. It's cold and it's cloudy and kind of I don't know if the weather is typically
that's
like
England.
That in that it's like
that's the summer.
Is it raining or is it not kind of thing, but it's got that like mysterious weird atmosphere, but it's weird because you get the background. It's like this fun playful banter, and the two of them kind of talking on the background of this weird dreary drizzly place, and like you said earlier, when you walk into the slaughtered lamb, it's just it's like there's a lot of contrast in that first act.
It's cold. It's cold. The characters are cold too. I mean, physically and emotionally, when they enter it, their acceptance is cold. John Landis has this canning ability of not yelling cut when the scene's over with, and so Griffin and David had no choice but to just tell knock-knock jokes. And they use that in part of the movie because he says some of the best stuff you put in the movies are not on the script. They're all ad-libbed. And that's what half this movie is, just made up lines.
Yeah. I like kind of the backdrop of that eerie, bleak landscape. I think it's cool. It sets it up.
You're talking about my hometown.
I know. I'm not. Listen, we live in Kentucky, so we
all Blue Hills.
I know, right?
All Blue Hills. All 6
Everybody
seasons.
walks around on dirt floors, and we still use outhouses without electricity.
Moonshine, ginneries, and everything.
It does sound like Britain.
Kentucky and Britain. There you go. Miguel, what were you getting ready to say? I kind of cut you off there.
I was just talking about like the fact that like when it comes to ad libs, that you kind of it feels more authentic of a movie, because like there's certain parts of there's certain movies out there that are like you could tell that's just being read right off the cuff, right off the script and everything. But when you hear those ad libs, you can immediately tell somewhat that this is like they're ad libbing something, and they're like other actors are just like going with the flow. And I love seeing those little moments where it's like, oh shit, we're ad-libbing. Okay, let's see if we can make this work. And I find that so much more interesting,
natural,
and funny, and natural. Yeah, absolutely. Just seeing like their interactions with them in the pub, and then I think it's just that pub scene was without a doubt one of those scenes where it was like really setting the stage of like how out of place they felt in that pub. One thing I wanted to ask you guys, why is it when they left, they were not warned whatsoever of this werewolf? they were not warned. Like they were just saying like stick to the roads and
Well, I
deal
thought
with
they
you. But,
were.
like, I didn't feel like they were. They just like kept like they're saying just stay off, stay on the roads, but nothing else.
They
They're
said
kinda
we'd
like
believe
vague.
them, though,
right? Yeah.
I mean,
Beware
yeah,
the
true.
moon
I could
ads.
get that. Yeah.
They kind of
Who wants to bring attention to this little shanty town? You know,
Yeah.
who wants to?
Shanty town,
Well, Christ,
This is just
Darren,
like
you
a
know, it
virtual
ain't.
beautiful parts of the UK.
It's not fucking Manhattan or London, for Christ's sakes. You know, it's a place
man.
made out of sod and mud. You know, it's the scene for Braveheart, for Christ's sakes.
Holy shit.
This is one of our, finest collection of British actors in there as well. Shanty town.
Where are all those actors now?
Probably still at
Actually,
that
most of
level.
them are dead.
But I think like they kind of danced around it too, like even the pentagram drawn on the wall, and like it was just kind of danced around the fact until they were out, which kind of even talking about Jack's death scene, like which for me is, I think honestly it might be the scariest moment in the entire movie. Like
It's horrible.
I don't know which of you would agree. Like not and it's not even just the kill is super violent and intense, but the build up leading into that moment is legitimately
The stalking
creepy.
of the werewolf. Yeah.
Yeah, like there's kind of, which I really
360
appreciate.
camera going around. You know,
Yeah.
And there's like there's a lack of music there too. Like you just get like the sounds of the environment around them and their footsteps, plus the werewolf kind of the sounds coming in different directions. Like I think that was really, really well done. It's one of the creepiest moments in the movie,
Yeah, yeah.
and even-
It's. I mean, Simon's right in the chat there. That those particular portions with the interiors of the pub were filmed just outside of London, but the exteriors were all filmed in Wales. And then the actual attack scene was filmed in Hyde Park in London. But the that sequence, Frank and I have chatted about this a few times, but there are two sequences in my life where I've been really creeped out because you see a grown man screaming for his life in agony. One of them is Quint in Jaws when he gets bitten in half, and the other one is Jack in American Werewolf when he's just absolutely pleading for his life, and his best friend is sprinting in the opposite direction. And then he stops and he thinks, "Shit, I got to go back for him," and he turns and runs back. But the mess that they make in that sequence, it's just horrific. It's one of the most violent on-screen deaths, I think. It really is.
It's kind of sudden too. You know what I mean? Like we go from that creepy, like you said, Frank, about like the rotating camera thing, and then it just happens, and you're just stuck with that.
Yeah.
And I mean, I don't know. Even David running, Miguel. Let's be honest. Would you leave me?
Yeah.
He wouldn't have even gone there with you.
Well, I mean, like, let's be honest. Like you said, Darren, like the gore of that attack is so gruesome and so horrifying. Well, it's the same way as like a grizzly bear attack. Those are so ferocious and so scary. Like nobody wants to be mauled by a fucking grizzly bear. So like I think they really like honed in on that like actual like horrific scene of like almost like a bear attacked him, not just a werewolf. But the way they did it, it was just like, well, what can you do other than just like save yourself? And that's so unfortunate, but it's like this is nature going against the both of us, and nature has hands. So like what do you do there at that point other than just to save yourself? So Brad, I'm terribly sorry. I would not know what to do.
You want to go for Brad? There's still a little bit you didn't know on. He's still there. I'll be back.
Evil Alex says the attack is an underrated jump scare and comes from nowhere, and is a terrifying scene with the Black Knight and the screams of his friend. Yeah,
It's such an impactful scene when Griffin's mother cried at it.
Oh,
because
really?
That's her baby. That's her. She saw what was going on. Even though it's a movie and it's makeup, and it's Rick Baker actually doing that and doing all the makeup, she cried throughout the whole movie.
Wow!
I think he
got depressed himself, didn't he? While he was doing the scenes where they made him up as a kind of zombie, one of the undead. he actually got into a bit of a depressive state because he was in that makeup for so long. And you know, there's 3 stages of it. So you've got the first time in the hospital, you've got the second time in the bathroom, I believe, and then the third time it's kind of the third time's a puppet that they use in the cinema. It's not actually him. But the first 2 times when he was done up in that makeup, he said that he just couldn't handle it, and he was just getting into a depressive state over it, and going home and crying of an evening because of the image that was embossed in his head from looking in the mirror all the time.
Wow.
So yeah.
Miguel, I'm going to honk the shit out of you if you leave me.
It'd be like a normal Tuesday or Saturday morning, so we're online.
Going slightly off topic with this, but Griffin Dunn's sister was one of the kids in Poltergeist, was the older sister in the Poltergeist movie. And right before the Poltergeist movie came out, she was murdered by her boyfriend, wasn't she?
Oh my gosh.
Strangled.
Yeah. And so he had a kind of tough few years, didn't he? So you had to deal with all of this, is the depression that he went through playing this character, and then immediately after, like the next year, that happened to his sister. So he had a tough old time in the early 80s.
Yeah, well, and I mean, even like if you think about that scene, like, and it's hard because again, like a lot of the comedic elements come from Jack after he's like the decaying version of himself too. You know what I mean? But like
a nurse, huh?
Yeah. I like, hi David, with the Mickey Mouse. I also love when he's when David's in the bathroom and he's looking at himself in the medicine cabinet mirror, and he shuts it and he's just like, hey, like, he just kind of standing off in the distance. But really, Jack is kind of in hell almost. It's almost like he's
purgatory.
Kind of,
yeah.
He's like stuck in limbo until until David does this. So it's kind of it's dark. Like it's weird. Again, that weird mixture of like, it's hysterical, but it's also, when you really think about like the meaning behind it, it's like, holy crap, it's really kind of dark and out there.
What was the reason why they're in purgatory? Like, what needed to happen for them to actually go into the afterlife? Because I kind of forgot that.
The original wolf that killed his victims had to die.
Yeah.
Because they had I think it was called like it
was a curse, right?
It's
they have to sever the bloodline.
Yeah, so. But they called it. They had a unsatisfactory death or something like that. A death that was abnormal. So I mean, not all of us get killed by werewolves every day.
Very true.
So it was unnatural. They had an unnatural death. So that's why they were stuck in purgatory, and their bloodline had to die in order for them to go to the great beyond.
Well, because I think we pick up after Jack's death, when the people out of the slaughtered land come and shoot the wolf, it's like 2 or 3 weeks after that happened, right? When the nurses are giving him the old peekaroo in the hospital.
Yeah, I think it's 6 weeks, isn't it? Is it? No, it's 2 weeks, isn't it?
2 weeks.
He was unconscious.
He was in a
for 2
coma.
weeks.
Yeah.
So I mean, like, really, Jack has been. I mean, he's been just waiting all that time, while David was out of it. It's pretty interesting. Evil Alex says, on a side note, but I'm the only one that always thinks of Al Pacino seeing the main character. Oh yeah, I could see that. He kind of looks like Al Pacino. He always kind of reminds me of him, looking wise and a bit acting. So.
Hooah!
Fuck you.
So,
to the wolf.
Simon Mills
Tommy gun.
Unnatural death. So yeah, like an unnatural death. And then even, I don't know. It's interesting, like prior to David's, because we go from kind of after the first act is over, like once what's her name, Nurse Alex, is that her name? Once she takes
Alex Price.
She takes her patient home, and like it's kind of
rehab.
It's a weird, that's some hell of a rehab.
You don't do that in America?
No, they give you the bill on your lap while you're wheeling out.
I know, right?
Yeah,
you're dying on the table, and they're like, "That'll be $100,000." But no, like even it kind of again switches to more of a comedy. Like you get the stuff with Jack, you get kind of the stuff in the apartment where they're on top of each other every 5 minutes. Even like you prior to the transformation, you get the scene like with the dog, the two kids sitting there holding the dog, laughing, and the dog is barking at him. And when he tries to get back in the apartment, like it's interesting, kind of the shift in, like, it goes almost through phases of like tone in this movie, you know.
And the cat on the windowsill as well is hissing. Yeah.
One thing that I like, for me, watching it, even watching it again, what was your take on him when he's like his sequences where he's imagining, like, I think it's when he's asleep and he might be dreaming it, like when he's like running butt ass naked through the woods and he's seeing like the deer running out and whatever else, and like, what's your take on that whole thing?
It's for me, I like to think it's his body and his mind accepting his transformation coming up.
Yeah.
You know, now he's watching himself in the bed, or I know he's chasing after a deer. That animal instinct is coming, and kind of like with Jack Nicholson and Wolf, where he went after a deer.
Right.
Then he saw himself, you know, with Nurse Price about to bite her, and then he saw his family get slaughtered by wolf Nazis. Which is not funny.
Oh,
holy
shit!
Crap,
I forgot about
the whole scene. I don't know how I forgot about that.
I was
I must have blocked that crap out of my mind.
And that's funny because like in the commentary, I'm pretty sure I was like all over that part in the movie. I was like, where the fuck did this come from?
Yeah.
So, but I was just gonna talk about, like, because the scene where he's running in the woods, because that was like semi in the beginning of the movie, right? Like it was like one of the very first.
Still
things.
in the first act, yeah.
Yeah. So I thought it was just like, you know, it was just like a little message to all of us. It was like we all have some sort of primal instinct that we just kind of like suppress, and is until like something clicks and all of a sudden we all could equally become werewolves or something like that. We all have this primal animalistic instinct within us
to hunt, to eat.
To eat, survive, you know, find shelter and all that stuff. And then we go left field and talk about Nazi werewolves. And I was like, bro, this is a movie in and of itself. I like this.
I'll tell you, he and Nurse Alex really explored their primal instincts.
There you go. Yes. One of the animal instincts is, you know, reproduce.
Simon Mills says the nightmares David has is him losing his humanity. That's interesting too. Well, I kind of struggled. Like, is it really him losing his humanity and kind of like the transformation in his, like, you know, kind of in his subconscious, or is it?
Could it be warnings?
Because he kind of struggled with like the, you know, like after a while he was like, Jack, go away. Like he kind of wanted him to leave him alone. And I think he had a hard time like accepting the fact that this was going to happen, you know, and it was just a matter of time until this happened. So yeah, that's an interesting scene. I completely forgot about the freaking Nazi wolf scene.
And that sequence is, I mean, you can tell that and I think it's quite well known as well that it was I think the MPAA had the scissors out on that sequence. If you look in the background, one of the final shots before it cuts back to the hospital is his two kids, which you don't see get killed on camera. But if you look in the background, you can see their dead bodies, and they are ripped to shreds. Absolutely torn. It's horrific. Are they on fire as well, Frank, or something?
I think they're smoldering, actually.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's a real split-second shot that you see of the bodies of the kids, and it's horrific. So God knows what they shot in that sequence. That didn't make it to the final cut. I'm starting to understand the
depressive notion after this movie. Yeah.
Well, and I even remember reading like Evil Alex. I'm going to get to your comment in just a minute. But like I feel like there was a scene. I think they cut a lot of the stuff with Jack out. Like they had other scenes. I think I had read one where like it was supposed to be him eating, like he picks up a piece of toast and takes a bite out of it, but it like falls out of his throat. Like after
that was the original plan.
I would have liked that.
Wow.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You would have wanted that scene, of course you would.
I think they tried to do it, but it wasn't quite working. But what you get instead is you get that little flap of skin that just vibrates as he's talking. That's just horrible.
Yeah, 100%. And it's such a like even the stuff with Jack is so good because even like at the various stages of decay, like it's such a juxtaposing thing between like because he's
still his friend.
Funny.
He's still his friend.
He's still his friend. He's still got that like playful banter that they had, you know, when they're walking in. Beautiful whales. There you go, Daren. Or is it whales? Am I correct?
It is. Yeah, that's right.
So There you go. But it's kind of funny. Like it's such an odd, chain of events. Evil Alex, I love the dream sequence with the Nazi wolves killing the family in the house, totally bonkers. And then also that dream would have been a good Grindhouse film for itself. Holy crap!
Yeah.
It would have been pretty interesting for sure.
There you go, Evil Alex, do the spinoff. That's it. We do. It's a whole spinoff of nothing but his dream. Gulag? Oh no, I'm late. The TSL boys. Yeah, what's going on, man? Nice to see you.
Hey there.
So kind of even moving on, like, we talked about the transformation scene a lot. Like what kills me is the bone stuff. I can do blood and gore, but the sounds of, they do this really cool thing, and they did it with his feet. They did it with even his leg almost at one point looks like both sides of his leg is like pulling apart from his knee, and like his hands are extending. The sounds of the bones like snapping, and
especially when his face gets long.
That one right there is what was kind of uncomfortable for me. But yeah, Brad's not a fan of I
can't do bones. I don't know why.
Can't do bones.
Crunching.
yeah.
Crunchy sound. Well, even when he first falls out of the chair, because even the transformation is kind of sudden. Like he falls out of the chair and he's grabbing his head, but when he looks at his hands and his fingers are extending, that's kind of the first point where you're like, holy shit, what's going on here? Even when he when he says, I didn't mean to call you Meatloaf Jack. I love that, man. I love their continuous banter between the whole thing.
I think one of my favorite shots is the hair on his back coming out.
Yeah,
and that was painstakingly done, because they had to thread through the hair, every single hair on that back. And what they did was they shot it in reverse, so they pulled all the hair through, and then reversed it so it looked like it was growing. So the little tricks like that are just fascinating in this this sequence that they shot.
Yeah, and another thing that I think this movie does really well and really differently is I think so many other werewolf movies, even talking about the Guillermo del Toro one, and so many other horror films, something like Miguel, you had mentioned Malignant, and I think one thing that Malignant did was it kind of it waited to show you, and I like that this movie waits to show you the full where, you know what I mean? We don't ever really we don't get a full. I guess at the end when they're in the alley, you could say that's a full-on shot of the wolf, but you kind of just get little glimpses. Even the sequence in Piccadilly Circus, you just get little shots.
Yeah, they have to be careful because it's a wheelbarrow basically. You
was it really?
It's basically a wheel. So the scene where it's walking through Piccadilly and running through the streets, I think there's somebody in the costume using
Rick Baker,
the hands, and then he's in a wheelbarrow being pushed along. So you only see the sort of front end of it. I think for me, and Frank and I have spoken about this a few times, one of the creepiest shots is in the subway. When the guy's on the escalator and he looks down, and you can just at the top of the frame you can see the wolf walk into shot. And for me, that's one of the eeriest shots in the film.
Absolutely, and it even seeing it from David's perspective, because again, we talked about that earlier, this whole battle between, it's he's trying to tell himself, almost reassuring himself, this isn't going to happen. This is not, he's telling Jack to leave him alone. But it was really creative, to see a lot of the wolf stuff from Jack's perspective. What was your all's favorite? What was your all's favorite death scene or sequence involving the wolf in the movie? Once we kind of get into once the shit hits the fan.
Well, Piccadilly probably takes the whole cake. From the head, the severed head, going on top of the hood or the bonnet, and then just falling up, which they forgot after all that stuff was actually cleaned up and they were ready to leave. Someone forgot the severed head.
No,
in Piccadilly Circus. They left it. So Rick sent one of his team members to go get it, and the guy found it, went back on the tube or the subway, and he's carrying this severed head, and everyone's just looking at him. And he thought it was funny. He's
awesome.
They were so nice they didn't call the police on me.
Well, it's almost kind of two completely, you have the Piccadilly Circus scene, which is just I mean, it's on crack. I mean, it's just like hardcore.
Chaos.
It's complete chaos and anarchy. But like what I like about the guy in the subway is like you first only hear like the growls, like, you know, he's sitting like, I think he's reading a newspaper or something, and you just hear the growls, and what he says something like, somebody on YouTube was like, that was the most British thing he could say.
I assure you, this ain't one bit amusing.
Well, he threatens him with the police or something like that too.
I shall report this to the authorities.
But like when he starts running, like, there's so much that build, even the final moment where you see that little tidbit of the wolf, like once he enters the platform, like the scenes where he's running and he's kind of tripping and he's dropping his umbrella and the briefcase, and like the build up to that moment was really, really, really well done.
His fall on the escalator looked like it was painful.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it
It
did.
did. Yeah.
And you know who that guy is?
No, who is that?
He's Bib Fortuna from Return of the Jedi. You know the guy that guards the
Jabba's
palace at the
assistant.
start of the film? Yeah, Jabba's assistant.
The
No.
tentacle head.
He is, yeah, with the
That
kind of
is
big
great.
snaky. Yeah, that's him.
What a cool trivia! Never would have thought of that. That's cool.
I think one of the other interesting things, though, is you know, that whole Piccadilly sequence. Show again, it's the Britishness of the scene as well, because you there's all this carnage unfolding. Now, had this been in Times Square, it would have been over within seconds, because the police in the UK are not armed at all.
Are you serious?
Yeah, we don't have.
I didn't know
Some
that.
are. I mean, like, you know, the Royal Protection guys maybe, and you know, we do have armed units, but the usual the police that are on the streets or that go door to door or drive the cars are not armed, and so in that sequence there, all that carnage unfolds because the police have no guns, and you get that shot of the armed response unit in a van traveling to the scene, which is when they corner the werewolf in the alleyway and then shoot him. As I say, if that would have been in the US, it would have been over within seconds. But
I was gonna
That would have been
mention
funny,
something
Darren. They all be
like
missing
that.
each other.
Yeah.
You know? Ricochets and hitting people and looking out the window.
Would have pulled like a Vanessa in Halloween Kills for
Oh, yeah.
Oh no.
the door.
Shoot
I
out the
was gonna
tire of the
mention
double
that
decker and flip over.
I think it was like earlier in the movie where like he was trying to like get himself arrested or like get himself like you know, like
Oh yeah.
yeah.
yeah,
And he was going to the officer and like saying like, "Hey, I killed these people," or "Hey, I'm fucking psychotic. Like, take me in." And like the way the cop would just like, "Go home." Are you like you don't need, you are
Go about
causing
your
a
business.
disturbance.
move along.
Yeah, move along or something like that. If you did that in
Nothing to
Times
see.
Square, you're getting booked and sent in
Oh my
quickly.
God.
within
Can't
a
get
blink of
arrested.
an eye. Yeah.
If you did that anywhere in the US, you'd be
Shot.
it'd be insane. And it's
Yeah.
funny because he's trying so hard to get him, you know what I mean? Like he's literally trying he's like, I literally murdered people. Like, you know what I mean? And the cop is just he just kind
Move
of turns
along,
his head
okay?
to the
Yeah.
left.
Yeah,
Stop
yeah.
this. Stop
Said the
this now.
paperwork's are long enough. I don't need this right now.
Simon Mills says, I'm from Birmingham, UK, and it's so funny and true about us saying lines like that. About the
I shall report this to the
I
authorities.
shall report this. Yeah,
Oh man. I'll tell you what, another good one is another good scene with the wolf is the couple in the kind of the courtyard thing where they're waiting on the other ones for dinner.
Oh,
And
yeah.
that whole that whole thing, because it kind of, that's a good like face shot of the wolf too.
yeah.
When you get, because I think it kind of turns and you get like a brief, like you like see the whole head of the thing kind of like come out of the darkness, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
Well, that scene bothers me. I told Darren this. Like, everyone dresses for a dinner party, and everyone else swings their brandy around. And everyone takes their brandy with them to go investigate something. And then when he finds his friend, half his arm, on the ground, he just looks up and is like, "Oh, the night is ruined."
Yeah. Golly.
Yeah, golly.
Well, and it's funny because then you get the whole sequence with the wolf where you get, the couple, but then again, we hop ship, and it's like another phase of it. Then he's naked running around the zoo, which again is one of the funniest moments of the movie, where he's like running between bushes, and he's trying to, you know what I mean? He's trying to hide his junk, and you get the balloon kid, and it's just funny. I like kind of seeing that. I also, when he gets the red coat.
Yeah, like the parka.
Yeah, he's got the parka from the lady. That's always good too.
A lot of weather we've been having.
A lot of weather. That's a very British thing to say as well.
A lot of weather?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it's like rain, there's the weather. It's never ever sunny, right there. It's barely sunny.
Well, he's defaulting to what the usual British topic of conversation would be, because that's all people talk about in Britain with people they don't know. Oh, lovely day, isn't it? It's like that all the time. You know what I mean? And so he just defaults to, a lot of weather we're having today.
We would have replied, "What's so lovely about it?"
It's hot as hell. It's 96 degrees.
Yeah. Why are you talking to me?
Yeah.
Do you all have
no, sir, I don't have a 20. No, stay away.
Yeah.
Do you all have like a winter? Like a
yeah.
Okay. I didn't.
They have.
It's all year round.
Well, I didn't know if it snowed a lot there,
It depends on which part of the country you are. If you are where they filmed American Werewolf in Wales, then you're going to get a lot of snow because it's quite high up. But in London and the southeast where I live now, we barely get any snow.
Yeah.
If you guys need to shut down.
Yeah, we can't cope with it if it does it does slow. Yeah, our transport stops if there's leaves on the line. And that's a genuine thing. Due to leaves on the line, the service is suspended.
Really?
Yeah. It's either that or somebody jumping.
Frank, do you guys like cancel school? Like I'm a teacher, so I see this a lot. But like, do you guys cancel school in Jersey when there's a lot of snow?
Yeah. There's been our normal winters. We'll get one day maybe anywhere from 10 inches to 3 feet.
Wow.
And we'll still go out. People with their 4-wheel redneck big trucks that don't have a back door, or and the windows are all shot up and barely can even drive on the road legally. We'll go down to the grocery store or the deli to get a cup of coffee. Why are you going out to get a cup of coffee in the blizzard? Because they want to see the plows go up and down.
Yeah.
Well, like it's kind of like, I don't know, like with us, we get, honestly, this last winter we had quite a few, we had a couple bursts where it was like, we got like 1.5 feet, couple feet, like in a day, where it was just a lot all at once.
Welcome to the club.
I know. And it's funny though, because like, we'll cancel school if there's 3-4 inches of snow on the ground.
Yeah.
What is going on? Why are we talking about the weather?
I don't know what.
Well, it's a very British thing to do.
We keep getting like completely sidetracked. Evil Alex says, my favorite scene is actually the theater scene, seeing the corpse around him in the dark theater, realizing what he's done. Yeah. Tiffany Moses.
Hey, Tiffany.
Hey, Tiffany.
Hello,
How
Tiffany.
you doing?
Nice to have you here. We kind of talked earlier about the difficulty to classify this in like one specific genre, but you could almost, part of me almost thinks you could almost classify it as, kind of a tragedy, because like you have the gory, grotesque moments, but there's a lot of the emphasis I think is on David having to come to terms with Jack's warning, and kind of the suffering of all of his victims, even like kind of talking about the adult theater, like you see like the 3 homeless guys, and at that point Jack looks awful. I mean, we don't even really see him fully like in the light, because it's he just looks like a skeleton at that point. Do you think you could almost kind of classify this thing as a tragedy?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely. It's devastating.
And plus, he dies at the end.
Well, one of Frank and I's favorite moments of the movie is the very final shot when they're about to shoot him, and the wolf's face has that moment of recognition when she's pleading with the police and pleading with him, and it's snarling, and then it stops.
Yeah.
And you almost see David's face, like it's recognizing her voice, and then it just instinct kicks in and it goes for her. And Frank and I have debated whether it is going for her or not. Is it just moving forward, or is it is it actually going to attack her?
Well, I was going to say,
it happens so
quick.
quick. Yeah, it happens so quick, and for me, it's the beauty of this film is that there's no fat on it whatsoever, and the moment that he is executed and the body kind of resurfaces, it's over. That's it. There's no point in dwelling on it or seeing how she is or how Doctor I forget his name now, Doctor whatever, how the doctor is who runs down the alley afterwards. It just
Graves, Dr. Graves,
Hirsch.
Hirsch,
Dr. Hirsch, yeah.
Dr. Hirsch, yeah. It just cuts at the end, and that's a good point in the chat there. Back to the retro Simon.
Mm-hmm.
It's tragic. It's like the ending of The Fly.
Another great creature feature.
Yeah, you feel for the guy. You really do. Even though he's done all these things, it's just instinct that's kicked in, and he has no control over it. And like The Fly, it's a tragic love story. Yeah, really, really, it chokes me sometimes. Both those films do when I see them.
Yeah. Well, and even like, another thing that really kind of hit me about the tragedy, and the thing that made me think about that was the scene in the phone booth after he's pleaded with the police, and he takes the, I don't know why he was going to try to kill himself with like a Swiss Army knife, but
we know that's not sharp at all.
I know, right? Nobody's ever seen a Swiss Army knife that's actually that sharp. But when he calls his family and like he's saying goodbye to his family on the phone, and that's kind of a really sad, kind of like gut-wrenching moment where it's like, damn, like that's he's saying goodbye to his family right now.
Yeah.
Like
telling his little sister, I do love you, you little creep.
Yeah.
But still playing with her a little bit. 'Cause she is young.
There was no way for this movie to have a happy ending. You know what I mean?
No, not a chance.
No,
not like
really,
Werewolf in Paris, where they're jumping, bungee jumping off the Eiffel Tower, getting married. That was.
Are you kidding me? What?
Wow.
No
that's
way.
Awful. Yeah, he cured himself.
Does that happen in the end?
Yeah, then they bungee jump off the Eiffel Tower in a tux and a bride outfit.
Jesus.
I'm kind of glad they didn't do that in this one, because like if you have a resolution like that, it kind of just throws you out the movie. Like it doesn't become like anything other than like a comedy or something like that. If
it's a photo album thing. Oh, you remember when you turned into a werewolf? Oh,
exactly.
Yeah,
it's like how do you
try explaining that one to your kids. But and it's what's so remarkable about this whole thing. Like it is kind of what we said at the beginning, is that balance between really visceral horror plus incredibly well written comedy and the tragedy and the sadness of it. I mean, it's remarkable. Miguel, what was your take on the ending? Do you think there was a moment between Alex and David as the wolf, or do you think that was really the wolf just getting ready to show his newfound primal instincts off?
I like the initial idea whenever I thought about when I watched this movie that it was literally just his animal instincts coming into play, because I think it was like the full embodiment of like the werewolf at that point, because like it was like, well, this was the final moment he was going to be a werewolf, so it was just pure animal instinct until he was put down. Like there was zero of his humanity in there. But I liked what you said, Darren. Like you could still sense like a little bit of humanity whenever the nurse comes in and tries to like
reason with him.
Reason with him. I like that because it kind of plays into like almost all of the other creature films, like The Fly, and even like King Kong. Like even though he is like a giant gorilla ape, he has that humanity when he has Anne in front of him. So like, and like obviously he gets shot down, he falls off the Eiffel Tower, but it's like, yeah, I like that aspect of like giving it some sort of like it still has some sort of humanity inside him, and that really really plays into the tragedy part of the movie, where like it sucks because they're only there just to visit London. They're just there to visit another country, and they're faced with this absolute traumatizing event, and now he's cursed for so long to live these last final weeks as like a primal animal that's just gonna get killed off, as if it's like a rabid dog or a rabid raccoon, like on the side of the street. It's
he doesn't remember changing, and he doesn't rember anybody he kills until they come to him.
Yeah, and I wanted to mention this in the theater for a second. The part that I thought that was so like comedic in that area, that was the fact, one, it was an adult film, like okay, sure, and two, when it kept showing up all of his victims, they didn't seem particularly like upset that they were like mauled to death. It was more like an inconvenience to them.
Yeah.
It was like I was at a party. I was sleeping on the side of the road, and you just mauled me to death. Okay, sure, I guess. And now I have to sit in purgatory. What? This wasn't how I pictured my Tuesday night.
Yeah, the couple was like, "Hello."
Well, the three homeless guys are just kind of like.
Yeah,
like, all right,
can't see. We're pleased to meet you, Mr. David.
There was actually I think it's been like over a decade now. There's been talk of like a potential remake or a reimagining, but from the best I can tell, I don't think it's made any headway. I think for a while, Robert Kirkman, who we kind of talked about The Walking Dead a little bit earlier, but Robert Kirkman, I think was in talks to write that.
It was actually he may have been he may be now, I don't know, but for quite some time Max Landis, John Landis's son, was going to remake the movie, and then unfortunately he got cancelled. Yeah. So for a number of reasons, and so that's kind of vanished now. That's gone. Along with Max Landis, unfortunately. But
and I mean, even with COVID and everything, I like the state of everything. Like, who knows if it was dropped or
Yeah.
I would like to see an English werewolf in New York.
That would be kind of funny.
It'd be
that
shot.
would be a 30-minute
10 minutes.
That'd be a 30-minute episode. Borderline anthology.
In the subway, everyone just shoots him.
Everybody, not only the cops, but all the like just New York
riders and everything. Then they just push him in front of them.
J-Did says London citizens are the most polite victims of brutal killing. What the hell was that for?
Good. Yeah.
Have either of you seen A European Vacation?
Oh, I love, dude. My favorite movie of all time is Christmas Vacation. So I love that scene.
You love those movies.
Yeah.
So there's a scene in European Vacation with Eric Idle plays a cyclist who gets run over by the Griswolds. Yep. And he's kind of got a compound fracture and his wrists are split open and he's pissing blood everywhere. And he's going, don't worry about it, old chap. It's just a flesh wound. It will be okay. That's where all that kind of, unapologetic Brit charm comes from. So, yeah.
And apparently everybody over there thinks we're from New York.
That is very
Everyone's like, where are you from? New York? And you just have to say yes, because if I say I'm from Jersey, they think I'm up at the island.
Yeah. And if
everybody's from New York.
I'm from Kentucky, they'll think, well, what are you doing wearing shoes? It must be interesting wearing shoes now, right? Or something like
Where's
that.
Where's your jug?
Yeah.
Y'all make moonshine, right?
How's your fiddle?
And if they see me, like I'm like 100% Latino, but I'm born and raised in Kentucky, so like to see me is like a rare occasion with my slash country accent or something like that.
Well,
they'll think I'm a hybrid.
Even when we were like in school growing up, like everybody made fun of Miguel as like an immigrant, and I'm from Florida. I'm not even. Really, I grew up in Florida, so like Miguel's the only one of our friends that are actually from Kentucky. And he's always made fun of the immigrant. Slasher Fred, I've noticed that the movie has many references to the original Wolfman, especially when David and Jenny are in bed, and he asks her if she's ever seen the Wolfman, and she thinks he's referring to the curse of the werewolf, which was called the Wolfman in England. Yeah, that's interesting. I don't know if I don't know if I picked up on that.
That's right. It was an Oliver Reed movie. Was The Curse of the Werewolf in the UK.
They talk about Lon Chaney in there.
That's right.
In the movie as well. Yep.
Yeah.
Little Easter eggs.
Simon Mills says, "Curse of the Werewolf with Oliver Reed, a Hammer film."
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
I've never seen Curse of the Werewolf.
It's fun.
Because the original like Universal Monsters Wolfman was just called the Wolfman, right? If I'm not mistaken. Yeah. That honestly, that
was that supposed to be a part of the Universal Monsters, like Benicio del Toro's? That was a part of the Universal Monsters.
I think that was
before.
That when
that was before, yeah.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
But they were moving. Universal was moving on to bring back their Universal Monster.
Like that was.
Oh yeah.
Tom Cruise killed that.
Yeah, I was going to ask you guys, in regards to like Universal Monsters, did you see like before the Mummy? Obviously, like. did you think the idea of Universal Monsters was like something like extremely interesting to like delve into, or did you knew that was going to be like a flop from the start?
I like the Universal Monsters, but it's hard to do another Bela Lugosi. But Dracula did that very well. Francis Ford Coppola in '92 with Gary Oldman as Dracula. That's probably the best Universal monster type adaptation to the movie. But yeah, they can't get Frankenstein right.
Yeah,
they can't
I would agree
get
with that.
him
Yeah.
right.
Because he's just another tragic monster as well. And like almost every single one of the Universal monsters are tragedy stories in and of itself. And it's I guess it's hard to like put that into a film and actually make it something that's like worthy of the runtime, I guess, because it's hard to make it not sound like brooding like the entire time the movie's like, oh, you know what's gonna happen to him. Burned up in a shed, killed at a stake, shot by a silver bullet. Like, you know what's going to happen, but how do you make the story much more interesting and not just make it way too brooding of like, oh, well, we know.
And how do you feel sympathy for this creature?
Yeah. I've always said, and you know, him and I have kind of talked about this too, but I feel like there is a way to legitimately make the Universal monsters scary again. You know what I mean? Like, I think you could do that. Like, if somebody with, and I'm not saying to create a universe, that's not what I mean, because I know we live in MCU world where everything has to be connected to everything. But like, even if they were just standing
in the multiverse,
like I know, I know, right? But like, you know, even with Dracula, like I feel like you could make a legitimately scary Dracula movie if you wanted to.
They managed it with The Invisible Man. I thought that was a very good retelling and scary. You know, the scene in the restaurant is.
Oh yeah, I mean it brought it into the 21st century, but it still stayed true to like what you know what the original one did really well. So, so we're at about an hour and 26 minutes, guys. If you have questions for Frank and Darren, please throw them in the chat. Real quick, I know kind of Halloween Ends is the big topic in horror right now. Real quick as we wrap up here, what's your else take on Halloween Ends? What's your dream scenario for how Halloween ends?
So my whole thing is that Michael can't die. He can't. But since we know this through Halloween 1 through part 6, you know, because he changed his form to basically human to having parts of like supernatural. I mean, in part 6, he got shot in the chest with a with a tear gas gun. And he got up. But for me, I think what should be the best ending would be is as he kills everybody, get rid of Laurie, get rid of Hawkins. Laurie, first of all, get rid of her.
First 5 minutes of the movie.
Yeah,
First
done.
I could see that, honestly.
Yeah, they surround him like they did in Kills in '78. And then just as the morning sun's about to come up and you get the morning fog come in, you guys in Kentucky know nothing about morning fog. As soon as that comes in, you know, he disappears in it and all is left behind is his mask. And he's done. You don't find him at all. And Allison is just like, no. And he's done. He's done with Haddonfield. He'll never come back again.
If that happens, I need Loomis overdubbed, like from the end of H4. No, I need that overdubbed over top of it. Darren, how about yourself?
I mean, initially, I've said this quite a few times, but initially, I wanted John Carpenter to direct the final episode and just have him bookend his career and finish off the Halloween franchise. I hope we're going to get exactly what I wanted, which is a really small, intimate, claustrophobic Halloween movie along the lines of the original. I just want more cat and mouse and less killing. That's all I want. I want more atmosphere, less violence, less gore, just a really creepy, spooky, haunted house type Halloween movie like we got in the 70s, and I'll be really happy. So far, the signs are pointing in that direction, hopefully. So I'm happy so far. I love the fact that we know absolutely nothing about this film. I think it's great. And it really, really, I love sitting back and watching people drive themselves mad trying to conjure up, you know, oh, it's a dream. Oh, they're brother and sister again. Oh, he's going to fall off the radio tower. It's just, I love all this stuff because I'm guessing that when it does get revealed, people couldn't be further away from the truth. So, it's fun. It's
Well,
fun.
even like a lot of people have really sunk into this whole. I think Ryan Turk said something about COVID like a long time ago, and they're like, "Oh, it's gonna be about COVID," and it's like I was like, I don't think that they would do that. You know what I mean? Like, especially
I
since
think
it's
they
already...
said that it would reference COVID. I think that was it, and
Which
it could be a throwaway
that's
comment or
Yeah.
a mask in a drawer or something like
A
that.
mask in the drawer.
It'd be funny if Lori, like she's frantic. She's opening drawers and stuff, and she's having to like just go through
An
a ton of
N95
masks
in there, yeah.
I know, hand sanitizer and masks, and she pulls out a gun, and it's like, oh, it's like,
Yeah, every scene is a hand sanitizer video.
Yeah, I don't know. For me, Frank, I kind of disagree with you. I would like to see Michael and Lori go out together. I feel like that's a good natural way to bookend it. You know what I mean? And I don't know. My fear, I don't necessarily have a problem with Michael living, but my fear is that somebody's going to come along and say, no, that really wasn't how that Halloween really didn't end. Now we're going to do a Halloween Begins or Halloween, return. I don't know. Like
you find Michael collecting carts at the local grocery store.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Actually, he's working at the local grocery store. He's bagging up people's groceries.
The red vest on.
Yeah, kind of like in Shawshank Redemption, where the older gentleman finally gets out.
Oh, Brooks in red.
Yeah, doing a terrible job at
Personal business boss.
Yeah.
So a couple of questions for you guys before we get out of here. J-Dead says, if you could have a remake of an American Werewolf, who's directing? Ooh, interesting. And what's one thing you would have to change? I'd go with Guillermo directing, and I would want to set it in modern times past COVID, or post-COVID, excuse me.
Del Toro did a really good job with The Shape of Water, kind of making that a love letter to a Creature from the Black Lagoon. So maybe he would take a spin on it. I would not. I would actually change it to a different city. Right now, I think it would be an American Werewolf in Moscow. Would be perfect.
Oh, wow.
Or Tokyo. Could you imagine that? All those people.
I could see Tokyo would be interesting. Yeah.
All the flashing lights and video games all over.
And just to see their like culture, intertwined with like an American in there
that would be
and
cool.
everything. So that'd be really cool.
That would be pretty cool.
This guy who's armed with chopsticks, just silver tipped.
My go-to directors at the moment are Lee Winnell, because he did an amazing job on Invisible Man and Upgrade. Did you guys see Upgrade?
I haven't seen Upgrade.
The Lee Winnell
I
movie.
told Brad about Upgrade. It's an interesting concept.
It's
I haven't seen it, but
fantastic.
yeah.
Oh man, that film's violent. It's so good. It's kind of like what Venom should have been.
Yes.
Give it a watch. It's really, really good. The other film that he did, obviously, Invisible Man, is great. So I'd kind of like him to have a stab at American Wolf in London. The other director I would want is Alexander Aja, who did Hills Have Eyes, Piranha, Crawl. He's great at creature
actually liked
features.
Crawl. I thought Crawl was pretty good. Yeah.
Crawl is really good. And his one of his first films as well, Switchblade Romance, or depends where you
High Tension.
High Tension, it's called. It's a French horror film. Amazing stuff. So I think he would be really good at directing an American Werewolf remake.
For sure, man. I agree with that. Slasher Fred, the movie Child's Play 2 has many Frankenstein references. Chucky being brought back to life with electricity, and him searching for his former creator/owner in hopes of becoming human, only to have him reject him. That's
deep.
That is actually pretty deep.
Very deep.
I dig that. I think they're making a Wolfman film with Rain Coslin from Invisible. Yeah. That's who you were talking about, Darren, correct?
Okay.
Yeah. Back to the retro. Simon says Evil dies tonight. Simon Mills says Evil dies tonight. We do not need any more Evil dies tonight. I can tell you that right now. D Gulag, Darren and Frank are awesome guests. They absolutely are.
Thanks, guys.
Cheers.
J-Dead, Halloween Ends will mostly be a suspense-filled movie with only a few deaths. I think it's going to be the hunt for Myers for the first 2/3 of the film. I'd be okay with that, honestly. Even if we didn't reveal Michael until the third act, like that would
keep him in the shadows.
Yeah, that would be really cool, actually.
Well, you guys remember the poster for Halloween 5, right? It said the return, and then they put the revenge of Michael Myers, and then the subtitle was "Now they're ready for him." They were just the whole movie was them like running around like we don't know where he is.
I know.
Yeah.
I think it wasn't it this time they're waiting?
They're ready.
Or something like that.
They're ready for him.
They're ready for him. Also, who's ready for him?
Yeah. Well, we just did an episode on the main show about this, like why the mob thing didn't work. Like it just because I was so like seeing the trailer, I was so excited for the mob thing and kills because I was like, man, this is different. Like this is going to be like Halloween 4 on steroids. Like it's going to be really cool. But even the drunk dads in Halloween 4 had more organization than this mob thing. Yeah, I mean, it was just
organization.
Like,
they killed their brother Bob in a bush.
Taking a piss in a bush.
It's
Shit, Earl.
Ted
Hollister.
That was it.
Hollister. But yeah, it just there was no like
killed the pervert.
Like Miguel had said this. I was like, there needs to be a moment where like maybe they all suck and they're unorganized, but like there's that Braveheart. They come together, they're organized, and then Michael still wipes the floor with them, and that's cool. But it was just like by the time we got to the hospital and Anthony Michael Hall's jumping over the chairs, going, "Evil dies tonight." It was just like, what the hell? It's like how did we get here? Like there was no. It was weird, very strange.
I would say the mob was like semi-campy in that regard too.
Oh, Brackett was lost. Like he was in. He forgot his his room number.
Yeah.
Where am I?
J-Dad says an American Werewolf in Colombia, cocaine-fueled werewolves.
Oh my word!
Then Al Pacino can be in the movie.
Absolutely, yeah.
Tina was not ready for Myers. Are we talking Tina in
Ida?
Tina.
Yeah.
I still think she's such a bitch for leaving J-Dad.
I want to see a real life cookie woman make an appearance.
Listen. That can be when they reboot this in 10 years. That can be it's Halloween. Cookie Woman. Cookie Woman. Simon Mills says, "Who's your favorite werewolf out of Ian Shanley Jr., Oliver Reed, David Naughton, Jack Nicholson, and Del Toro?"
I think I would have to go to Mr. Lon Chaney. I think so.
David Naughton for me.
Solid. Real quick, last comment. I don't want a remake. I want new stuff, more original horror, a new werewolf film. Haven't seen a good one in years. I agree with that. I think.
Yes.
I do hope they kind of let. I hope they let Halloween sit for a little while. I'm kind of to the point where I'm like, I love it.
It's all in the name, right? The name is the on the marquee.
Yeah.
Now, if they say Amityville, they know they're gonna draw people in, and it could be about a haunted car for all we know.
Absolutely. And again, in 10 years, like that's cool. Remake it. I mean, I think that's cool. And, I have thoughts on that too, but like, honestly, what I would like to see, if we're going to go back to one of the 80s slashers, I really want to see the Duffer Brothers from Stranger Things remake Elm Street. I think that after
if you guys have seen the new seasons of Stranger Things, you would agree with us and knowing that like they would do a great job in rebooting Nightmare on Elm Street.
Maybe a musical?
Perhaps, yeah.
I need Freddie in stirrups doing a whole like nothing but show tunes. It's like him
doing the Eurythmics, Sweet Dreams, just
yeah.
tap dancing.
Absolutely. Well, guys, we want to thank you both so much for joining us in this one. It's been an absolute treat to have you on. If you would, we're going to have you guys hang out until we got off the air, and then the four of us can say our legit goodbye. Before we go, I think most of the people kind of listening and in this space know who you guys are, but for good measure, plug your channel, let everybody know where they can find you guys at. You guys can do that.
We're the Slaughtered Lamb Movie Podcast on YouTube. We also have a Facebook group with quite a lot of subscribers in there. Great community. So give us a subscribe or come along to the Facebook group and say hello. And also, if you're from our channel that are watching Brad and Miguel today, give these guys a sub. They do great stuff. So I can see a few of our regular guys in the chat and stuff. So if you're not subscribed to Brad and Miguel, give them a sub and a like.
Yeah, they're fun.
Appreciate that, guys.
Appreciate it.
All right, that is going to do it for us in episode number 13 of Purely and Simply Evil. Thank you to everybody in the chat for hanging out with us today. Again, big thank you to Frank and Darren. New episodes of our shows premiere every single Tuesday and Saturday at 8 p.m. and 10 a.m. Eastern. We are on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok at We Talk the Movies. You guys are amazing, and we will talk to you soon. See ya.
Take care.
Bye, folks. Ta-da.